Good day, One Nation Tribal Alliance, brothers and sisters, near and far. Today, on Sunday, June the 14th, 2026, today I am here to share, I guess, some personal information that I've been, you know, not holding back, but just kind of bring it out to you all to so you can see who I am. I talk about I am. Well, it's time for me to come out to tell you who I am and why I am sharing the knowledge of what the elders are concerned about. My class that I had introduced last night, uh, contemplative alignment, has been really been in me or been kind of a burden on me because, I get news from back home, about so much suicidal rate, attempted suicide, you know, finished up or, completed suicides and all this and all these problems that people are sharing the information with me about, you know, it really, really brings a concern in my heart because, you know, back home when I was raised, we had elders and the elders used to, you know, share the knowledge with us. And a lot of the knowledge that they share with us has, I guess, gone away. I mean, when I go back home, it's just like, hmm, nothing is there. Yeah, we come together as one, as a tribe when we have certain events going on, but after that, everybody's on their own. This connection is not there other than when a big event is going on. And, when the big event is going on in back home, everybody is just running around enjoying the blessings, the day, or being at the present moment. And that's what, I am here to share with you because contemplative alignment, is a word that has been lost. And today I'm here to define it to you, what it really means and why it is lost. So starting out by saying that, in the contemplative alignment is a practice of bringing your thoughts, emotion, intentions, values, and actions into harmony through reflection, meditation, silence, or other contemplative practices. You know, as I was growing up, fasting was a big thing for me. I could not figure out why, as I got, indoctrinated into a medicine society, why I had to fast once a month. All I could think about was, you know, I'm gonna starve to death because I can't eat this. I can't eat that. Or I gotta do this, stay away from the people, stay away from, but really, it was to fasting is to connect with our relations. Without relations doesn't mean my brothers and sisters, my uncles, my uncle. No, relations meaning other living things. Everything on earth vibrates. And when everything vibrates, it responds. I learned that in many different ways about how when things vibrate and you connect with it, how it responds. But I'm going to go further on in to this contemplative alignment definition. Self awareness. These are the practices of contemplative alignment practices. And first of all, self awareness, observing your inner thoughts, and feelings without immediate reaching to them. Now, what? Now you say, well, what do you mean? Observing your inner thoughts and feelings without immediately reaching them to them. Well, the old saying goes, for every action, there's a reaction. And so when we observe our inner thoughts, thoughts are spiritual things that we are upon. We are above the 3D realm when we are having thoughts. And I can explain that a little later. But when you think, that's when your mind is no longer observing, but it's contemplating what to do, what is next, what's going to happen, what's the consequence. Your mind is already bringing in all these thinking into your thought. But rather than reacting right away, put some thought. You know, look at it. Look at this. Look at what's going on. Because our inner thoughts are more powerful than the outer thoughts, outer thinking. Because the outer thinking, we are controlled. Our inner thoughts, we control our inner thoughts. So, feelings. You know, I ask a lot of people to define feelings. And those that really understand the feelings, they can define it to me. Those that don't say, I don't know how to say it. I don't, feelings is like love. This, yeah, but I mean, what your inner feelings? It's listening to that little voice that's behind you, listening to your subconsciousness, before you react. You go somewhere where, you know, your subconscious says, this feels uncomfortable. And if you don't remove yourself and something happens, you're involved in that. But if your subconscious says, this is uncomfortable, and you get away from it and remove yourself and something do happen, you're not part of that anymore. This polarity of this earth is either negative or positive. You're in the light or in the dark. You're up or down, right and left, good energy, bad energy. You're in the polarity. But when you're in your thought, you can be in it, but not become a part of it. And so, because inner coherence reduces conflict between what you believe and what you live. That's simple. If you believe that you're not supposed to do this and you live it, well, you're okay. But if you believe in what this is all about, and you get into it and say, well, and something happens, guess what? You're in it. But again, when I say believe in what you live, like for instance, a lot of wildlife are relations, especially snakes. The people, back home, I was talking to one of my, um, I would say, I guess, one of the kids that want to be part of the family. He was cleaning out the backyard and he says, I saw a snake. I'm going to go kill it. I'm going to go kill it. I said, why? Because it's poisonous. It's going to hurt somebody. It's going to do this. I said, how do you know it's going to do that? You can't think for the snake. Well, they do it. I said, they don't do it all the time. If you tell that snake, go on out there, you got a big world ahead of you. Don't confine yourself here because you're not expected to survive by these people the way they think. You know, you're not going to, but if the people are in the thought, yes, they'll pick you up and throw you where you need to go. They'll tell you where to go. They're not going to end your life. That snake has a spirit. So we have to respect our relations. And that's what I do. When I see a snake, I don't kill it. I've had copperheads, I've had water moccasins, rattlesnakes come up to me. And I said, go on. You know, I'm not here to hurt you. So go on. And when the thing about it is that I keep my vibration high to where when they feel my energy, they listen. And when I send that thought to them to say, move on, they will respond and go on. You know, your thoughts are not verbal. Your thoughts are not in writing. Your thoughts are not taught. It's your frequency. So again, inner coherence reduces conflict between what you believe and how you live. Purposeful living, aligning daily actions with deepest values, you know, beliefs or spiritual conviction. Let me say it again. Purposeful living is aligning daily actions with your deepest value, beliefs, and spiritual convictions. I don't see that back home on these young people. I don't see, you know, the deepest values. I mean, you know, how I see it is when I was a kid, my deepest value was to what? Respect my elders, respect the people who was older than I was, not argue with them. If they say something, boy, I'd listen. Nowadays, they say something, kids argue back. Makes me, want to go into the human nature and teach that kid a lesson, but that's not me. My values are more, you know, and my beliefs, you know, and also my spiritual convictions are more higher than to go down in the 3D world into punishment. Presence, cultivating attentiveness to the present, cultivating the presentness, you know, being attentiveness to the present. Pay attention to what is now. You know, it is written where Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. Don't worry about the past because you can't change it. Live for the moment. And that's what we need to do. Live for the moment. If you say, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, that's because where are you spiritually? There's a lot of things you could do. Being a spiritual person is you are of service to others, relations, whether it's your brothers and sisters, animals, bugs, whatever. You know, that's cultivating, the alternativeness that is being now, the present, you know. In spiritual tradition, contemplative alignment is often viewed as aligning oneself with higher source, ultimate truth, and higher wisdom. Nowadays, the younger generation is back home. They're not seeking the ultimate truth, the higher source, or the higher wisdom, because they're not taught to look up. They're taught to look down on their iPad or their iPhone, texting, playing a game, whatever, watching a video, listening to music. They're not taught to put that down and look up. When that started was 9/11. Why does it say, why did I say 9/11? 911. What does 911 do? When you, when there's trouble, call 911, you know, yeah. But when you call 911, who are you calling? You're calling man. You're not calling the creator. You're not calling the father, you know, you're calling a man. So think about that. When the kids are all out there playing the game, whatever, and you're not allowing, they're not having a chance to look up. But, again, as I say, with this next last definition is spiritual tradition, spiritual traditions on contemplative alignment is often viewed as aligning oneself with higher source, ultimate truth, and higher wisdom. But again, do we see kids doing that? No. You know, for everything I always say, talk about, I just don't leave you hanging and stop there. I share with you because this is the way my elders taught me. When you identify a problem, you explain it. Then you find how to deal with it. So now here's how to deal with it. Simply, contemplative alignment practices are sitting quietly in thought or meditation. When you are in thought, you are in the spiritual realm because your thought is not thought. Your thought is your thought, your way of bringing connection to the higher source. That's your thought, not them telling you this is the doctrine of belief. This is what you need to do. This, no, 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 no. Practice sitting quietly in thought or meditation. A lot of people say, well, I always fall asleep when I meditate. Do it because you're tired. Your body is tired. You know, you sit down quietly, meditate, and fall asleep. That's what your body needs, and your spirit is allowing it. You know, the other thing you could do is reflecting on your values or spiritual practices. You know, you should be doing that every day. Reflect on your values and spiritual practices. We do. I mean, when I'm back home, we when we eat, we have a spirit bowl. Even the kids, when they eat, they pass on to the others. To the others mean the afterlife people. We pass on little food for them. You know, I was asked one time, well, how do you know they're going to eat that hamburger? How do you know they're going to enjoy the hamburger? I said, well, it's like you. When you eat the hamburger, do you eat it because it brings you life? No. You're eating it because the spirit of that hamburger is what's keeping you alive. And you say, what do you mean by that? Well, what hamburger, let's break it up. You need protein. The beef in a hamburger has protein, has red blood cells for your red blood. It's got other nutrients in there that your body keeps, and it processes what it don't keep. The bread, carbohydrates, give you energy, kinetic energy. Carbohydrates are potential energy until you eat it, and then it goes into kinetic. Lettuce, tomato. Tomato has lycopene. You need lycopene to go. You don't eat the tomato because of the tomato itself. That's not going to keep you alive. It's the lycopene in the tomato. It's the protein in the beef that's keeping this alive, not the item itself. See, understand that. You know, another one, noticing where your actions are or are not aligned with your values. What are my values? My values is to live a higher vibration and to connect with my source. That's not religious. That's spiritual. When you are religion, you want to connect to the preach, to the priest, then to the God, to the angels and all. No. Jesus said, and I like to use the word Jesus because we all know who he is. He says, called himself, I am, meaning that I am, if you look at the word I am, it is one person. I am is when he's talking about his spiritual life. His spirit is connected as one. And I could go deeply into about being connected as one. And the only way I could describe it is, you look at sacred geometry, a circle with a dot is a divine feminine, right? Well, we are all created by a divine feminine and divine masculine. Who dominates it? The divine feminine, not the masculine. If you're a boy, it's not a masculine. If you're a girl, it's not the masculine. We all are to connected to the divine feminine. Why Zuni is a matriarchal society, but I don't think they even look at it that way because they don't allow the divine feminine into the kivas. Why not? But you look at the kiva, it's a circle with the entrance in the middle. Isn't that the symbol of the divine feminine? Okay. You put a circle from top of your head, bottom of your feet, make it a circle, find that middle dot. Where is it at? It's your navel button. That's how you're connected to your mother. And your mother was connected to her mother. And to her mother connected to her mother. And it goes on to the Big Bang. And that's why Jesus said, I am, because we are of one. Now, sitting on intentions to bring greater harmony between your belief and your actions. So, what does this mean? Well, this means that what you believe in and how you remember before you think about it, before you react, let your thoughts observe before you react. Because if you react with just seeing, you're gonna miss out a lot of things that could happen. You come to a shooting, you'll see shooting going on. You see a guy get shot and he goes down. You want to go help him, so you run over there, help him. Guess what? How do you know they stop shooting? But if you stop and observe and see that the coast is clear, then you can go and be safe. But if you don't, you're in harm's way. That's what I mean. That's the only analogy I'm sorry I can give you as far as don't think, but use your thought. Observe before you react. Don't think. Because if you think, you're in trouble. you know. So now, why am I sharing this with you? It's because this is what the elders of the Southwest tribes are concerned about. We are our young people. We had 5 people that come up for wanting to become an elder. Talking to those 5, I didn't see any of this. I didn't see any of it from them. Even to some of these religious leaders, they call themselves leaders. I don't see it in them. I mean, I hate to say this, but a lot of people say something go on Zuni. Where's our religious leaders? Where's our council leaders? Where's this? I said, the leadership starts right here, not out there, right here. Don't be pointing fingers at them before you point your fingers at yourself, because these are our kids that are doing that stuff, you know? So this is one thing I want to share. And the reason why it's just been my mission, to teach spirituality, not religion, just teach spirituality. Why? Because I myself have gone through a lot in life. This body has gone through a lot. But the only thing that keeps me going is that I have a mission from as one to share the knowledge of spirituality. I am. When I say I am Imso Yawakim, meaning that I am of one with the higher source, you know. And reason why I say that, I'm gonna share a little bit of stuff with you about what I mean about having being in the spiritual life. Ever since I was a kid, I've conquered death. Even to the 2017, I still conquered death. And that time, at that time, I experienced crossing over. And every time I conquered death, I was thinking, was I recalibrated to come back? Because when I came back, I don't care. This spirit told this body, even if they roll you in a wheelchair, you're still going to share the knowledge. These elders that I grew up with, they shared the knowledge with me, knowing that my spiritual life is going to continue no matter what, no matter what I go through. You know, everything I put forward in my life is spirituality, not religion. And I say that because that's who I am. I am. I don't ever look at self, my identity. I'm not ever saying, oh, you as a successful person, you as a successful businessman, you're a successful at this. I don't put that aside. I am sharing the knowledge that the elders have taught me, that shared with me, because I want you to be I am rather than self. So my classes that I teach, contemplative alignment, I'm going down deep because, you know, I know to not only learned it in Zuni, when I was in Egypt, I learned it from the pyramids, the hieroglyphs, alchemy, symbology. When I was in Tibet, I learned it from them. When I was in Japan with the Buddhists, I learned it to where they had enough trust and faith in me to where I received my Gohansan, because my ultimate goal is enlightenment, to connect with the source, be with the source, where I am of one, you know, and the Bible clearly speaks that out. Now, I don't agree with a lot of things in the Bible, but there are some things that you know, I believe are said. So I opened up One Nation Tribal Alliance to make it open to everybody, to accept the Rainbow Warriors, to share the knowledge with them. I don't just teach this for money because a lot of people say, well, how much for your service? I say donation. Well, so and so, I'm not so and so. I am Imsa Yawak. I am Imsa Yawak, not so and so. Not I don't follow anybody other than my spiritual realm, my guides. You know, whether they're aliens from above that come down, whether they're ancestors, spirit animals, our relations out there. When I connect and I am in thought, not seeing, not thinking, but when I am in thought, you know, this is how I am. You know, I've learned to transmute my densities. One of the hardest things is that, you know, when your dad, you know, that one man that I admired and I honored, you know, him and I got hit by a drunk driver. When they killed him, I learned that transmuting my densities kept me going on my path. I sought forgiveness to the person that hit me. And that person says, no, you should forgive me. I'm the one. I said, no, don't judge yourself. I'm just here to transmute the densities to where I can move forward. And if you can move forward, that's fine. I just want you to understand that I have nothing, you know. So it's hard, but we all go through it. Life is rough, but don't worry about life. Don't worry about anything. Live for the moment. Live for the moment, not tomorrow, not yesterday, but for the moment. Just want to say thank you for hearing me out. Thank you for listening. And if you want to continue with what my teachings are all about, One Nation Tribal Alliance.com or YouTube channel, One Nation Tribal Alliance, or Yawakia at yahoo.com. I love you, and I'm not afraid to say to all y'all how much and I love and care for you. And just to tell you again, over and again, live for today.